This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. Today is Monday, October the 22nd, 2018, and joining me on the line today is our East Coast correspondent Leigh Stuart, who just released a bombshell investigative report where Leigh and her boyfriend did a little sleuthing, a little research, a little on-the-ground investigating, and what they discovered there at the Nav Centre in Cornwall, Ontario is mind-boggling. Namely, this is a place that was meant to house a lot of illegal, unvetted migrants, but what they discovered was none of them were there. So Leigh, I want to get your thoughts on that, but before we do, let's play a couple of clips from this video you just released so people can see what's going on there at the Nav Centre in Cornwall. Check this out.
That Canada can solve our problem. That's why we are here.
We are saving
and we don't have any other choice to go back.
Do you think Canada will let you stay?
Yes, they will.
Why do you think that?
Because I'm not going back. They don't have a choice then to let me stay. That's why.
$11 million has now gone directly to the City of Toronto. Our government has recently made arrangements to book hotel and motel rooms within the Greater Toronto Area. And this will allow Toronto City officials to move asylum seekers out of the college dormitories well ahead of the deadline of August 9th in order to make way for the returning students.
Coming here and seeing it, those reviews are absolutely true.
Yeah.
They are not exaggerating.
The state of the building has kind of deteriorated or declined.
Yeah, I would say so.
Look at this, free money on the wall. Arrow that way. This is unbelievable.
This has created more attention by people on this in this right-wing ideology, which led to the attempted arson.
There's no determination at this time that any of them are related.
This is just a quick video, pre-video actually. We're actually at the Nav Centre in Cornwall. How many generators do we have
50
here?
generators here that are sitting here doing nothing because a bunch of migrants were supposed to show up at the beginning of June here at the Nav Centre, and none of them showed up. According to a lady that works here who wanted to remain anonymous, says that there was a compound built here for them, including a dining room, porta potties set up, full tents, heated tents, and generators here for the illegal immigrants that were supposed to be housed at the Nav Centre.
The other building, half the other building empty in case they came, and they never came.
So is that because they were just sent to Toronto right away, or?
Oh, I don't know. All I know is the government paid a fucking fortune.
Yeah.
For something that was never used.
So do you have any idea what happened to the refugees?
This was just put up in case they just had nowhere else to put them. I don't know.
But they never showed up.
No, that stuff was all up there for the trailers just left yesterday. June? Yeah, this stuff was all, that stuff was all up for months and months and months.
Really? And no one ever showed up?
No, not a soul. Not one person.
Canadians, if they knew that, they'd probably be pretty outraged.
Yeah, we were.
$173 million in budget 2018 for more border security operations, as well as faster processing of refugee claims. In addition to that, we have made an initial allocation of $50 million in recognition.
The government lied.
They lied.
How the asylum-seeking system works and how our system is supposed to operate.
The government said that they had nowhere to put them. That's bullshit. They lied.
The government lied when they said there's nowhere else to go. That's why they send them to the Radisson Hotel.
Why did John Tory say that Toronto needed help with housing because there was nowhere else to send them when there was a whole field full of like hundreds
really
of tents.
Equipped.
There were about 75 generators, a heated dining hall, full amenities like washroom, shower facilities, and apparently none of the immigrants showed up. So why would the government lie about that? There's something that we're missing.
Well, we are certainly missing something, all right, Leigh, and I think when the Canadian people find out the true extent of what's going on there, they're going to be shocked. Now, I want to get your views on what you discovered, what you stumbled upon there in Cornwall. But before we do, maybe for a little bit of context, you can fill us in on the background of this. Why did you feel the need to investigate what was going on in Cornwall in the first place?
Well, this all started out, Dan, with a few TripAdvisor reviews and a trip to the Radisson. And what we uncovered there in that video is mind-boggling. Just the way that these people are treating the hotels and what's kind of coming to fruition through this whole illegal immigrant situation.
And this is the migrant housing hotel, right? Is it this? So maybe just explain what's going on at that particular hotel when you went there.
So to start off with the Radisson, there were a few TripAdvisor reviews that were negative, saying that there was a migrant camp there. Toronto had implemented $11 million to house illegal immigrants in Toronto because the shelter systems were full. The shelter systems in Toronto were being influxed with illegal migrants, and Canadian veterans and Canadian homeless were being put out on the street. So I decided to take a trip with a few of my colleagues or people also seeking truth. And what we uncovered there was insane. There was like writing on the wall. There was what we thought might be feces. Free money was written on the wall, kids running everywhere. I mean, the TripAdvisor reviews also included men approaching, women, making women feel uncomfortable, children begging for money. So that kind of led to one thing. And then I remembered my trip back to the Nav Centre last year, where I was proposed marriage to. And I knew that this was also another location where illegal immigrants were being housed. So definitely wanted to take the trip there. But we were kind of surprised with what we found there, which was nobody.
Mm-hmm. Now, just to be clear, this is where people who have crossed the border at Roxham Road in Quebec illegally have been supposed to be temporarily housed on the Canadian taxpayer dollar, correct? Now, as I understand it, crossing the border, they have a choice apparently of where they get to go. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, so after they cross at Roxham, they're vetted to an extent. I mean, I think their fingerprints might be taken. They're crossing the border with basically no ID, no papers. They're being arrested intentionally and then taken to a processing center where they're processed by the RCMP, not even the CBSA. So then they get to choose whether they want to go to Montreal at the Olympic Stadium in Montreal or the Cornwall Centre, the Nav Centre in Cornwall, and then shipped off to Toronto, because now this is a sanctuary city where these illegal immigrants can use social services on the Canadian taxpayers' dollar.
Now, what we've seen in your video footage is it looks like there were 60, 70 generators there, full housing, tent set up for, I don't even know, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, and the place was completely empty. Meanwhile, not long ago, you were in the Radisson Hotel, which had all of them housed there, essentially. The hotel was full, and I think the government allotted $11 million to them. So what on earth is going on in Cornwall, do you think? And, what did some of the locals have to say?
Well, yeah. So me and George Masad went there and talked to actually an employee. We actually ran into an employee at the Nav Centre who told us that the place was set up with hundreds of tents at one point in their field there with full amenities. I'm talking like a shower, facilities, dining hall, completely heated with yes, like about 75 generators. You can see that in the footage. And she said none of them showed up. And that means that the Canadian taxpayers are paying for a field full of amenities, waiting for these illegal immigrants to show up. And for some reason, they're completely bypassing this location. When John Tory in Toronto, the mayor of Toronto, said that, there was a housing crisis going on with these illegal immigrants and that there was nowhere to put them. I mean, they're lying. And to me, this is almost like a money scam, almost like immigrants are big business. And, you know, to think that the Canadian taxpayers are paying for this, and Justin Trudeau saying that the Canadian veterans are asking for too much, actually just makes me sick, to be honest.
Yeah, it does appear that what you've uncovered here is a racket going on behind the scenes in the illegal migrant racket, shall we call it? Because let's face it, these generator companies, these tent companies, these construction companies, these are some massive contracts that are being made behind the scenes. So a lot of people are making a lot of money at this. I know this is just fresh. This is a new investigation. But have you followed the money to these companies yet? And do we know who some of these people are who have been getting the big contracts?
Well, no, well, maybe a little bit, but you know, that could be a follow-up video. We can look into these companies and look at who owns these generator companies, who owns these tent companies. I mean, the Canadian Army was the one that set up the tents there. You know, it is follow the money, because that's at the end of the day what this is all about. We know that the Canadian government is in this for money and probably for elections, with an election just around the corner a year from now. You know, we're looking at potential, voting fraud. We're looking at, we saw that with the Toronto election. I mean, one illegal migrant was given the right to vote in Toronto by mistake. So, I mean, these are things that we can definitely look into with a follow-up video. You know, we missed this by 1 day. They had just dismantled the tents by 1 day. We were 1 day late. And yeah, the employee said that the tents had been set up for about 3 months. 3 months, that facility was sitting there just waiting for illegal immigrants to show up, and they never did.
Wow. Well, really, to me, this just goes to show just how bad government is when they get involved with anything. And I think the takeaway from this is perhaps the fact that maybe it's really time that people start looking into the private sector when it comes to refugee sponsorship programs, because the government is clearly failing left, right, and center. We know that on the government-assisted programs, 90% of these people end up on social welfare programs, and you know, these private run refugee sponsorship programs don't have that at all. They actually successfully assimilate people into society, people who actually need the help, and you know, they're actually able to help them. So I guess as a final kind of takeaway conclusion, would you agree that maybe it's time we just take another look at our refugee policies here in Canada, and perhaps it's time to shift away from the public model into the private? What do you think?
Well, that would be a perfect world, right? But unfortunately, we have no control over what the upper echelon or the powers that shouldn't be are doing. Clearly, there's nefarious plans going on where, you know, Canadians aren't being put first, and that's all being done by design, whether, like I said, it's for elections or whether it's to put people in displaced situations like the Canadian vets, and to cause division. That's also another thing. But, you know, to hold our government accountable and you know, to maybe take them out of the picture, because we can no longer hold them accountable when there's so many hands in the pot. I mean, who do you turn to? Now we have Bill Blair pointing the finger at Bill Blair, pointing the finger at Justin Trudeau, pointing the finger at Ahmed Hussein. You know, there's so many people that have their hands in the pot with this, and when it comes to holding them accountable, they're all just kind of pointing the finger at each other. So I think I agree with you. The government should not. You know, you rely on the government for one thing, and that is to protect your borders, and we are definitely not getting that from the government today. So definitely take this back into our own hands. I mean, inform Canadians about what's going on, and hopefully we can draw enough awareness to this situation where we can actually stop it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw things going downhill when, you know, Trudeau met with George Soros, and that was a clear sign to me that things were going to be leading in this direction. So fantastic work with the investigative report. We look forward to a follow-up on that video. And folks, I will have a link to the full video in the description below. And if you can, I mean, maybe you can pitch into Leigh's efforts as well. I'll have a link to her PayPal down there because, you know, it takes a lot to travel and to do these kind of investigative reports. I'd love to be able to hire Leigh full time, but we're not quite there yet, but maybe someday. So in the meantime, maybe you can help her out by pitching into her PayPal. Link will be located in the description below. So once again, Leigh, thank you so much for joining us today, and awesome job on the Nav Centre expose.
Hey, this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more coming. So yeah, stay tuned. Thanks, Dan.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.